Wow.
Yeah.
That was special.
Best intro I've ever had. Hi guys, I'm Freya. I'm a reporter. I write about climate tech. And my interviewee probably needs a little introduction. Halla, President of Iceland since taking office in August last year, and has previous lives as an entrepreneur. So lots of stuff to say on the topics we're going to go into. We're going to talk about climate policy in this pivotal and in many ways difficult age and the role of tech. So I've been in Iceland for a week, and I've been struck by how, one, you've really harnessed the natural resources you have here, primarily geothermal, but also how you live alongside this very turbulent climate you're living amongst. What lessons can we take from that for other countries? Start off there.
Well, good morning. Good to see you all. We can take a lot of lessons, I think, from Mother Nature in general when it comes to the topics we have here today. And Iceland is lucky, rich with abundant natural resources, but that's not enough, because if we hadn't had some ingenuity to use geothermal in the 70s when few others did, we would not have built the prosperity that this country has built. And it's a very personal journey for me, because I'm the daughter of a plumber who learned the trade of plumbing, who built his business around geothermal heating in buildings when no other country was doing it. So, frankly, geothermal is all over the world. But for some reason, in Iceland, we have used it. Now, on the other hand, I think it's important to mention that when you are rich with natural resources, sometimes you don't build up the entrepreneurial ecosystem the way that you should, because the natural resources provide you with abundance. So I think in a way, maybe we were, I like to think of Iceland as a very creative country. Mother Nature is still creating new land here, and people that get to grow up here get inspired by that every day, whether you're in arts or culture or an entrepreneur. But I think we probably were a little late to the idea of entrepreneurship, because we had abundant fish in the ocean, because we were able to create energy with abundant resources. So to me, it's been like a quarter century or so where we've been focusing on the fact that we can create something without natural resources as well. And that's an exciting new part of growth in Iceland. And yes, I need to address the challenges. So my husband is from the fishing village, Grindavik, for those of you who are not Icelandic, that has been along with the Blue Lagoon and our energy system, exposed to the natural elements like a few others. And what I find kind of unique about Iceland, because I've had the privilege of living in other countries and seen natural challenges as part of the consequences of climate change, among fires and floods and other challenges that have happened, that in Iceland we show up as a country and as a community when challenges like that happen. And people were helped in a way that I haven't always seen in other countries. And I'm proud to be from a country that tries to show up when we have challenges, be it avalanches or volcanic eruptions or earthquakes or other challenges. I'm quite proud of the fact that we try to do the right thing when the challenges of Mother Nature do not provide just opportunities, but also challenges.
Yeah, I think sadly there'll be more countries having to take a leaf out of that book, wildfires, etc. So the focus of today is on tech, or a significant focus of today is on tech. How central is that to fighting the climate crisis in your view? How many of the solutions will come from new technology?
Well, it's critical. We cannot stay on the path to 1.5 degree world, which is kind of the definition for a livable world, without technology solving a good part of what we need to solve. And I have high hopes for technology, but I think we have to be careful not to think about technologies as we often think about it, as the only path forward, because I think we need to change our ways as well. I think we need to go back to natural-based solutions as well, and I think we need to work with Mother Nature to create many, maybe not so high-tech, but lower-tech solutions as well. Nature can solve about a third, at least, of this crisis, and tech maybe a third, and then maybe a third is behavioral change that I think we need to have. But for example, here in Iceland, I have high hopes for the seaweed revolution. And the fact that we're using 100% of the fish, and we're increasingly thinking about ways to turn waste into value, into well-being. So I think there are lots of opportunities for us in what might not be high-tech the way that we think about technology, but still, for example, we need to solve packaging, and seaweed could help us do that. We need to solve the fact that we don't have enough food for the growth in population. We need to solve that. And so technology is very important, but so are human behaviors and human values. And there are days where I worry about the great big opportunity that the AI and tech revolution hold for humanity, but think they might sometimes come at the expense of the very things that matter to us as human beings.
That's my
I worry
next
about
question,
that.
and then I want to dig into that a bit more. There's so much talk about using Iceland's ample energy for things like AI data centers. Is that the best use of your clean energy, in your view?
Well, my grandmother gave me good advice when I was young, and it served me well throughout my life. She said, never put all your eggs in one basket. And I just really think this is very true for Iceland as well. I think we should have diversity of things that we use our energy for, and not bet on one thing. I am worried about the energy consumption that blockchain, crypto revolution has had. We're draining a lot of energy, not necessarily creating value to match it. I think the same thing will be true for AI. But running data centers in Iceland is certainly smarter, because at least we don't need to use air conditioning. We have that pretty much naturally and abundantly. So I think we shouldn't look the other way. But I think what I'm more worried about than how we use our energy, which I hope we do in diverse ways, is how do we set some principles and some moral compass for how this artificial intelligence revolution and this tech revolution unfolds? Because right now, I could list at least 10 or 15 different ways that it's risking our quality of life and our well-being. And so while it holds promise to solve the climate challenge, or at least contribute to that, to cure cancer and create individualized medicine and help us use our skills for creativity, because ChatGPT or something equivalent can solve a lot of the other stuff. I think it holds a lot of potential for bias, gender bias being one, but all kinds of bias. I think it holds scary potential for weapons creation, and now that we're at war in so many places in the world, I think a lot about the scary part of this and how leaders in the world might try to come together and use AI and technology for good, but not at the expense of all the things that matter for us. And some kind of principles or a moral compass, I think, is missing right now. I don't have high hopes that we will. I'm really sorry to say that, but I think it's almost moving faster than governments do. And maybe we've missed that train. But I hope, at least as entrepreneurs, I have to say that to this room, that you think about the impact that you are using technology or AI to drive, because I don't think you can call it success if you make a lot of money but you leave the world a worse place.
Yeah.
I don't think that's success.
I was going to ask what sort of legislative instrument you think that should come from, but it sounds like you think it might have to be down to individuals.
Well, hopefully individuals will think about this, and I think the younger generations really do. Increasingly, when I meet younger generations of entrepreneurs, they really seem to want to drive positive impact in this world, and I welcome that. I'm not sure legislation can solve it, I'm being very honest, but some kind of principles could, and I think maybe Europe holds some promise on that front, but right now, I'm not sure I see leadership from other parts of the world, but really you need global principles if it is to work. But right now I'm calling on individuals to really think about this, because I'm not seeing governments showing up in the way that I wish they would. Because AI is wonderful. It can help us use most of our time to do really fun and creative stuff. But if we are, if we're in a way investing in our own demise by the way that we use it, then I think we've missed the bigger picture of why we are here and what we are meant to do with this opportunity that AI holds.
And to go back to climate technologies, there was talk earlier today about how private capital can only be part of the pie in bringing those solutions to scale, and talk that governments need to step in more. How can you do that? How can you be better on funding those solutions?
Well, it's an interesting fact that, and I don't have the latest number, but in my prior role, when I was very much working on addressing the climate crisis, we did a study and worked with a lot of global institutions, and we found out that annually we are investing somewhere between $3 to $6 trillion a year into what is called, or we can easily call, environmentally harmful subsidies. So we go to the COP climate conferences and set goals for the future, and we go back and basically subsidize our own demise. Imagine if we had the courage from governments to just put half of that towards investing in the technologies that would allow us to live within or around the 1.5-degree path to the future. Everything would change. But this takes governmental courage, and unfortunately we don't have a lot of that. And after Russia invaded Ukraine, most governments doubled down, tripled down, or went 10 times bolder in subsidizing the fossil fuel-based economy. So I think governments have a huge responsibility at this time, and they could start just with how they invest the money they already invest, because right now governments are investing it in our own demise. And we as citizens need to really think about that. But this is just a fact. There was an energy crisis in Europe, and most governments, they went the easy short-term way that governments usually do to subsidize people's energy bill, and most of that energy bill is fossil fuel-based and is essentially killing us. So we should really think about government first using the money they already invest in the right direction towards the future and not the past. And then I think secondly, aligning all incentives in the system to really encourage the new technologies that help us on the path towards a just and inclusive 1.5 transition is the way to go right now. And in my opinion, I sometimes feel like we're living in a George Orwell novel. It's the best of times and it's the worst of times. And if we think about the best of times, if we use this crisis time, where the mother of all crises seem to be coming together at this time, and really rethought and redesigned and redirected all incentives and capital in the future that we want and need, and that is just for the next generation, then I think we might look back and say we lived through not the scariest time only, but some of the most exciting times for humanity, because the solutions are there by and large, but capital and human resources are not necessarily aligned with the future we need.
I'm very interested in the role a small state like Iceland can play when we have Trump withdrawing from the Paris Agreement for the second time. How can you leverage your position to get a sort of bigger effect than being the small state that you are? How does that work?
Well, we are a tiny country population-wise, but fairly large when it comes to land mass and gifts that we've been asked to take care of, because I think we are borrowing them from the next generation. That's how I like to think about it. I like to think about Iceland's purpose in the world to be a land of solutions, to use our creative capacities to create solutions and then partner really well with others to help scale them. Because I don't think Iceland can ever master, and I've not seen that many successful examples of Icelandic solutions being masterfully scaled with Icelanders only. I think we need to work with people who are better at that, because we're tiny. So I think we're best at the first part of creation, if you will. And I would like us to really think about using our sort of oldest and biggest gift that we've been given as a nation, in addition to the natural resources which are abundant, and that's our ability to storytell. I mean, we wrote some of the first stories in Iceland, and we can still read them in our own language, which is quite unique. So I think creating solutions and being really good at partnering with others to scale them, but be really good at storytelling about what is possible in a world that feels quite impossible, might be the way that we can drive the biggest or catalyze the biggest impact in the world. Instead of thinking that we can go everywhere and solve all the world's biggest problems, we can show what is possible here. We can share stories bravely about it out there, and we can partner boldly with those who can help us scale the solutions that work much more broadly. That's how I think about it, at least. A land of solutions that uses its creative capacities to solve real important problems.
And I want to ask you, I read an article you wrote in Le Monde about the need to decouple profit from emissions. It was really interesting. It's obviously a huge question. How can we legislate in that direction? That's something I feel like we don't talk about. I'm wondering your thoughts on that.
This is, if I had, one of the reasons I'm doing this, and I should be open why I do a lot of dialogues like this, is I certainly don't have all the answers. I have a lot more questions today than I have answers. But I think what we are doing now, we are creating profit in our economic systems at the expense of the next generation's ability to do so. And it's very clear that our economic growth for a while now has come at the expense of the future ability to create well-being for both people and planet. So we need new thinking economically at this time, and it's hard to get there. But starting by putting a price on the actual cost of creating what you create would be very helpful, because we still live within a capitalistic system, and when you don't have to pay a price for leaving the next generation facing a climate disaster, then why wouldn't you continue to do so? I mean, the stock market, based on its 3-month horizon, certainly punishes you for taking a long-term view. So I think there's three shifts that I think need to happen. I think the first shift is that we need to close I call it the gender gap, which is not just about women and men to me, but it's about sort of expanding the definition of success to include profit, but with purpose and principles, that we have a definition of success that is more all-encompassing, because caring for people and planet matters at least as much as profit, because if we don't have people and planet, there are no jobs on a burning planet with a broken social contract. That's just as simple as that. So there's no future there. So let's start there. I think the second gap we need to close is the generational one. I actually think a lot more about generational equality than gender equality today. Not to say that we haven't, we are done closing the gender gap. We're clearly not, and not in innovation or the capital markets or in so many places. But the generational gap is the really unjust issue that I think a lot about, because we are living our lives today like the next generation doesn't deserve to, or people on the global south. So I think closing sort of the generational and global gaps is also important, and that helps us, in my opinion, to take a long-term view when we engage with the next generation. So I'm really into intergenerational dialogue and design to bring people across generations into conversations about solutions, because I've seen that every CEO that I've successfully tried to or governmental leader that I've successfully or had some impact on changing their view has often done so because they've engaged with the next generation, their own children included. And then I think the third one that we really need to think about is we need to move from this where shareholders are the only stakeholders into sort of there are many more stakeholders than shareholders that are needed for success for a company, for a country, for the world. And so, yeah, I like to say expand the definition, go long in our time horizon by bringing the next generation in, and go more holistic in as to who is needed at the table to help create this new world. And we need governments to set the right rules and align the incentives. We need innovators to bring solutions and unlock their entrepreneurship in service of a better world. And we need citizens to hold both of those to account and do business with and invest in those who are helping us guarantee the right future, the just future for our own children and grandchildren.
I really like that phrase, generational gap. We should use that more. My last question was going to be, how optimistic are you? Are you optimistic? But it sounds like broadly you see a case to be.
I'm incredibly optimistic, to be honest. I'm stubbornly optimistic also, because sometimes I have to use stubborn mindset to be optimistic. But I think we have the solutions, and I think the money is in the system. But what we don't have is sort of the alignment between those elements and what policies governments are setting and how we're working, and what we incentivize in the markets for business and private sector. And even in our own mindset as citizens, I'm not sure we are aligning our dollars, our behaviors with the future that we all collectively say we want. and dream of, but don't always align our own behaviors in line with. So I think the alignment in the system is not there, but I think this whole mess we're facing right now is just because we need to be awakened so that we will start aligning those forces in the right way. So I think we will do that, and I don't know how long it will take, but I think Iceland can play a very important role in showing what is possible in that transition that I think is already underway, but maybe taking more time than most of us wish.
Great, thank you. Many, many calls to action. It's perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Freya.
It was great to talk with you.
Thank you. Thank you.